Welcome back to In Your Neighborhood. I'm your host, Charlotte Brown, and if you are just tuning in, we've been talking today with Redwood Park Church. I have Reg Jones and Annika Prekchik here today. And before the break, we were talking about some of the challenges that you faced with bringing in a Syrian refugee family here to Thunder Bay. I can imagine, or I can only imagine, there was a big cost that was involved as well. So let's talk about, did you do some fundraising? Did this come from members of the church? And kind of what were all the expenses? Because I can imagine it would be a pricey endeavor.
I think we've raised about $35,000 so far. We may need more because some things have changed. But we just basically put the word out to the church.
Nice.
We created a Facebook page called the Supporters of the Redwood Refugee Family, and people have come forward very generously, and so we're pleased.
Absolutely. And what kind of things did you need to cover? Like, I'm sure the paperwork and the documents and doing all that kind of stuff, there was cost, but were you covering things like getting them set up with a home here or with rent and flights, and I'd imagine all those kind of things as well?
We're responsible for the first year of their residency here, for their entire budget, basically. So we found housing, so we're covering their rent, food, other sundries, etc. We basically have furnished the house with beds and furniture and couches, and most of that donated by people in the church, and outside of the church. People outside have also been very generous.
Nice, wonderful. Were there any parts that were easy in the process?
Welcoming them, I think.
Oh, yeah.
I missed that. So.
Yeah.
Oh, it was such an exciting day when we were waiting for a week. Probably we knew they'd be coming within the week, but we didn't know the exact date. And then we were told the day, but then we didn't know the time. And then finally it was a Wednesday when they ended up arriving in the afternoon. So we had checked with the family to see, what their wishes were, if they'd want, if they really didn't want to be, have a huge crowd waiting for them, or if they minded, and they said they didn't mind a crowd. So
Nice.
we didn't want to make it too big, so we did have the mayor did come.
Nice.
And welcomed them officially to the city, and we had the settlement committee, and then from the Facebook page, supporters there. So there was probably a good 50 people there.
Nice.
With signs and banners and just cheering them in, and as they walked in, their smiles, like they just, I remember driving to the airport just imagining what the moment would be like, because their family from that own kebab village were there too. So what, their reactions when they'd see each other.
Nice.
And I started crying on the way to the airport already thinking about
believe
it.
Yeah.
But it was just, such a joyous occasion, just so many big smiles. They didn't even remember, because they came in and they just hugged and kissed everyone, because that's a part of their culture, and just thanked everyone, and they just seemed so grateful, so happy, and just so excited to be here.
Nice. And how long had it been since the families had seen each other?
Well, the Mahmoud's family, Mahmoud and Tajreed, they visit quite often. I think they were just there last summer, so they did see them. But at that time too, like the family was saying, please help us, please help us get to Canada. And they were saying, we'll do whatever we can, we'll try. Their family, they've helped a number of their family members get over here to Canada. So they're a pretty incredible, family.
Absolutely.
The cousins had never met. Their children had never met. So as children, that's the first time they've met each other.
Wonderful. So tell me a little bit about the family. Who all came?
So there was a husband and a wife. Their names are Zahar and Nisreen. The two daughters that came with them, Hadil is 19 and Sema is 13. So the four of them came together. Their oldest daughter, Gina, is 21, and she's married to Mohammed, and they're expecting their first child. And so Mohammed's application came in a little bit later in the process, so that's why they're still waiting their flights to come, hopefully soon.
Nice.
And so we have a second apartment for them.
Okay.
So that's going to be an interesting challenge. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't imagine their journey to get here. So do you know a bit of the backstory? Like what led up to that day where you have to leave your home and everything behind, and unknown as to what your future holds? So
they were caught up in the Syrian war in the early beginnings of it. So it was 4 years ago, last December, when their suburb of Damascus called Harasta was totally destroyed. Just totally destroyed. The rebels and the government fighting over whatever. and totally destroyed their neighborhood. So they escaped, walked to Damascus itself, but there was nothing, you know, Damascus couldn't do much for them. So they fled to Lebanon because they had relatives, cousins in that area. People don't realize that Damascus to Beirut is like 80 kilometers.
Oh, yeah.
And so they fled there, and they were there for over 4 years. They could not work. The girls could not go to school. Sema got a little bit of school. So it was just an impossible situation. You have no rights as a refugee in a country. You basically are there at the mercy of your neighbors.
And they were staying with, there was multiple families. that
Six
were staying
families in one apartment building, one
for
apartment
4
unit.
years. That's
Yeah.
unbelievable, you know, that, yeah, quite the journey to get here. So I'm curious as to what they think of Canada so far.
Well, Zahar, they're just learning, probably their youngest daughter, the 13-year-old Sema, knows the most English of the family, but Zahar's words when we went for to a brunch to their place, they invited all of us over 2 days after they moved into their
Oh,
place
wow.
and put up a big spread of Lebanese, Syrian foods, and he said right away, he said, "I love you, I love Canada," and he was saying through the interpreters, they were saying that he feels like Canada is his country now, and that we were guests in his home, and you know, he really quickly was just there in love with this place. They say it's so beautiful. I mean, it's very different, even the landscape from what they
Absolutely.
would have had at home, and
Yeah, the weather,
so,
I'm sure.
so far,
winter.
yep, they're experiencing a little bit of the snow before hopefully summer, which will arrive hopefully soon.
Yeah, absolutely. And how about the girls? They're in school and
They started school 2 days after they arrived. They were so eager to get to school. So Sema is in grade 8 in Algonquin with her cousin from Thunder Bay. So she has that language connection there. Hadil, who's 19, she's at Hammarskjöld this year, working on her high school, and then she'll
Nice.
continue to finish that.
nice. And how about work? Are they able to work? Are you looking for work prospects? I'm just thinking if somebody's watching and maybe they have a job for one of the gentlemen, that might be.
The job one is to learn the language, the
Right.
English language, because that's the long term. But yes, we are interested. We actually have a number of possibilities we're following up for Zahir, and Nisreen's interested in some part-time work. Zahir is a carpenter and has done some upholstery work. The son-in-law, who's coming, actually speaks English, has worked as an accountant for about 10 or 11 years, and so we're going to be shopping his resume around town with people that we know, because we think he's got a skill set that's unique for Thunder Bay. So it's interesting. I think a lot of refugees and immigrants actually fill jobs that people can't or won't do here, and so we've had people say to us, I can't find an upholsterer in Thunder Bay. So that's one that we're following up definitely with 2 possible employers.
Wonderful. And so what does the future look like? Is Redwood planning to sponsor more families? Are you just looking to kind of take care of these 2 families? Like, where does it go from here?
Well, we're waiting for this second family to arrive, and depending on how quickly they can get established and start becoming self-sufficient. I mean, we're very open to the thought of sponsoring another family, so we'll have to see where that road leads once this family is settled.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it would be amazing if every year we could sponsor a family. Some of us have talked about that. And the Syrian conflict has only brought to light the 60 or 70 million refugees around the world. And so there are refugees all over the world.
Absolutely.
It is an astounding problem.
Wonderful. Well, wonderful what you're doing for sure. And we're going to take another quick break. We're going to be right back with Annika and Reg and talk more about Redwood Park Church.